Okay, welcome everyone to our panel this morning on the best practices for live streaming. I'm excited to have a bunch of great panelists, some who I've known and worked with for a while, to bring all their knowledge to you. I don't know, they must do hundreds of events between the folks who are up on stage. Not even 100, maybe it's even 1,000 a year. These are folks who are in the trenches making live streams happen every day, from big productions to little productions. So we're going to get a lot of knowledge from them. They work on zero budget events probably, and some very expensive budget productions. You know, in a way, I'd say that technology has clearly changed live production, because maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago, if you wanted to do a live event, let's say right now I wanted to do a live event in this room, I need fiber lines and satellite trucks and or TV1 lines and all this stuff put in, and I would say probably in 30 seconds on my computer I could start a live stream of this event right now. I could even do it on my phone, probably in 30 seconds. Now, I don't know if it would be any good, or the quality of the webcam might not be the best, but I could do it. But these guys have figured out how to make it better and make it look good, and hopefully the content of this, though, would be worth live streaming. But anyway, so I want to give a little brief introduction of myself, and then introduce you to the panelists. My name is John Orlin. I've been working for about a year and a half at TechCrunch, the technology blog. And I just got back from a week in China where we live streamed an event for a couple days over there. That's a panel in itself. But we do live events in New York, San Francisco. We do mobile live pack coverage at places like CES. And I'll just say, but before that, I worked at CNN for many years, and also Yahoo Studios I co-founded. But let me introduce, for a quick little introduction from our panelists, we'll start with Dylan.
Hi, I'm Dylan Armajani. I work at AOL. I've been there about the last year, and pretty much every live production that goes through AOL or HuffPo, I have my hands on it in some way, from guiding the production to figuring out what technology we're going to use to stream it based on the budget, and what kind of redundancy they need. And so we really do a lot of different kinds of events, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But that's me.
Okay, Alden.
My name is Alden Fertig. I'm the product manager for broadcasting at Ustream, and we have anywhere between 100,000 and 500,000 people that are usually streaming using our platform every month. And from everything from their iPhones and Android phones up to satellite downlinks of international events that are getting encoded by encoding facilities. And so one of the things I do is support all those broadcasters at many levels to make sure that we can have everyone stream and have all the streams stay up all the time, and everyone can produce great looking content.
Adam?
Hello, my name is Adam Schneider. I was recently with Best Buy, working as a technical director, running all of their live streaming for the enterprise. As of right now, I'm doing freelance live stream production from end to end, pre-production, on-site, and then post, usually assisting with the editors on getting the edited product to the client.
Hello, my name is Victor Borchuk, and I am the director and executive producer at Jupiter Return. Basically got started directing Tom Green's show, and then from there started Jupiter Return, which is basically a production company that's focusing basically on web-centric type of productions, and just kind of working on a very streamlined workflow and kind of evolving the production process as much as possible.
I would say that Victor is like 3 production trucks in one man sometimes for some of his events. I should also mention that Pete Scott was supposed to be on the panel, but he wasn't able to make it. I guess he's not on there. So the first thing I thought we'd do is just dig in a little bit deeper, nitty-gritty, and I asked the folks to kind of pick, there's not a typical event, but just kind of pick one event that they've worked on that, talk about the workflow and how that happened, and just kind of a couple minutes to just get in there. So you want to start, and I might have a video. So.
Yeah, I think one of our, probably about 2 months ago, we did a live stream of an Alicia Keys concert live from the Beacon Theater. It was in partnership with Vivo. And I think for us, that kind of demonstrates probably the best we could possibly do as far as redundancy and really making sure we knew what we were doing. So it was a huge production. It's a union house. Sorry, I don't know what that was.
That was previewing a clip. Didn't know it was live. Go ahead.
But so we really we had our hands in everything from making sure that the format was 1080p 2398, which is not really standard for TV production, but for the web it looks just perfect. And so we really made sure that our product coming out of our switcher was going to look great. And then we had to deal with the fact that this was sponsored and this was with a new partnership, so there was no chance it could go down. So we brought a satellite truck in, we sent satellite to LA, and we encoded from there as our primary, and we sent fiber back to our facility in New York, where we did the backup encoding, really just guaranteeing that there was no chance this was going to go down. And we recorded our VOD files in the truck there, we recorded them at each transmission endpoint, and it really went seamless. And I think as far as what we do, that kind of just demonstrates the best, the high end, when you give us any budget, that's what we can do. But I have a quick little video so you can just see kind of the other type of things that we do. So you can see that really, no matter what your budget is, you can do something.
Roll the tape. Let's see.
And if I die tonight, well, I guess I die tonight. Let me go on.
Okay, now we are live from Cupertino, California.
Hey y'all, I'm Scotty McCreery, coming to y'all live from AOL Studios in New York City.
Welcome, Martha. Thank you for having me on your show.
Mixed Martial Arts Hour is back in your life.
Welcome everybody to the Engadget Show. We have a very Halloween-themed episode for you tonight.
If it wasn't for science, right now those people wouldn't be listening to us. We wouldn't have this opportunity.
That's just an example of kind of the wide variety of different kinds of production levels that we do.
And all those were streamed live?
Yeah, those were all live using a variety of different technologies that we do use.
And there was one that looked like in front of Apple headquarters that was there? How did you do that
we've recently started using a live UPack a lot, and it's not perfect. Sometimes the stream breaks, but it's really cheap, and you can basically go anywhere with it. And a satellite truck might cost you 20 grand for the day. This will cost you 2 grand to rent for the week, or 2 grand per month if you're gonna sign one for a year. And you really can go anywhere with it. And we use it to send the signal back to our studio so that I can actually send it out of our Cisco media encoders. So you can still stream multi-bit rate, iOS. You can really hit every rendition you need.
And that uses the 3G or 4G network.
Yeah, I think it's
get out.
14 cell phones and a WiMAX modem.
Right.
It'll probably give you cancer. But
Alden, do you want to?
Yeah. So one of the events that I thought of as an interesting example of sort of live in the field, live streaming production was we did a promotion with Zynga last year for, it was Snoop Dogg blowing up an armored truck in the middle of the desert in Vegas. And it was pretty funny because it was a good example of it. A lot of times when we do events for marketing companies, they sort of have a little bit of budget left over and they say, well, let's do a live stream. And maybe no one really thinks about how much that entails or what they need to do. But we had a video producer that went out with a live pack once again. And this time he was actually using a TriCaster to take in the camera. So he had multiple cameras and then they were feeding into a live pack. And this was in the middle of the desert. Well, the first problem we had was that the heat killed our first live pack, so I had to run to FedEx at 7:55 and make sure I could overnight another live pack to Vegas, and fortunately it got there. And then the other problem that we had was that there wasn't really any sort of director for the shoot, and there was all these people that had heard about it, and it ended up being an incredibly successful promotion on Zynga's part. And so there was multiple cameras there from different news agencies and things, and then no one realized that if you ever do an event with a rapper, they always show up 45 minutes late. So there was a stream that was scheduled to go on at a certain time, and there was nothing happening. It was just a shot of a truck in the middle of the desert. And so finally, one of the guys from Zynga said, well, maybe I should get on the mic and just say something. So you have this guy who wasn't expecting to be on the mic. He just starts bullshitting in front of the mic for, I don't know, half an hour. And meanwhile, this stream got to maybe 100,000 concurrent viewers, 200,000 concurrent viewers. And so we have a stream that hits massive viewership, and it's just a guy who wasn't even expecting to be on the mic in the middle of the desert trying to make up something about the truck. And so finally Snoop shows up, and no one had given him any instructions on what to do. And so he's like, well, what should I do? Should I just press the button? And someone's like, well, maybe you should count, whatever. So by the time Snoop was there, it hit 350,000 concurrent viewers, all off a TriCaster going to LivePack in the middle of the desert. And at the end, it was one of the highest live streams we had ever done, and it was a pretty interesting production because it was all basically happening off of just TriCaster LivePack in the middle of the desert. And I think Zynga was very happy with it, and it was a great example of it was. If it had maybe been planned a little bit better and it had only been 10 minutes long and Snoop had showed up on time, we probably never would have hit that viewership. And actually, him showing up 45 minutes late was probably one of the best things that ever happened because when it comes to live content, in order to promote it, it needs to be live and it needs to stay live for a long time. Because yes, Twitter is fast and Facebook's fast, but it's not 5 minutes fast. You need maybe half an hour to grow audience. So it was a very interesting example for me of how you could do a very low budget production and get a huge audience with the right level of novelty and someone showing up 45 minutes late.
So I think the lesson in that is be late, right? Don't start on time necessarily.
Believe it or not, it's actually something that I recommend to people now after seeing this happen on multiple events because if you're dealing with celebrity and you're trying to have the social media aspect of it. Everybody always wants their events to go viral and grow a big audience. The big thing with live content is that if it happens very quickly, then no one has a chance to catch it because people don't show up on time. So there's two tricks to growing a big audience for live content. And one is make sure your live stream is super, super, super long and just have it go on for days. And the other one is to have your main talent show up late. But I see Brian from NASA's here, and with the shuttle launch, unfortunately, the shuttle launches cannot happen late, so we haven't been able to employ that trick there, but they still managed to get pretty good viewership as well.
Right. I mean, we do get requests that people want to do a 10-minute live stream in places, and it's just, I think we up here know that that's just not, unless it's something huge, massive, to get people to tune in to something that's 10 minutes long is not going to happen at a great number. Except I think we were saying though that sometimes the high stream things are fan related. Like you had some example where if with a rapper or with some of the music folks, if there's a dedicated audience, they might tune in. But
yeah, one trick that we've started doing is basically recording something to a Key Pro, setting it to loop, and the moment it's done, just re-looping it. And Twitter will keep going. People, they don't totally realize it's not live. It's live enough for them. But then you don't lose viewers in that period where they come back 5 minutes later and the VOD file isn't there. So it's just a little trick.
Right. So if the event's over and it's a Slate or Black, all these tweets are going to be going out pointing to the event. So to have something ready, watchable right there makes a lot of sense. Adam, do you want?
Well, just to kind of piggyback on what they were saying, I always had issues with people saying that they would have, the internet line ready to go when I'd show up, and typically I'd show up and there would be no internet, or it would be very filtered and wouldn't allow for live streaming. And one example of this was the Lady Gaga event we did. It was her CD release inside of one of the Best Buy stores in New York, and we showed up and they had this entire wrought iron set built and this whole thing inside of the store, and we show up to live stream and we had done all the pre-work under the impression that there was a T1 line in there, and we showed up and it was a completely filtered, secure network we couldn't get on. So last minute we had to order a live pack, and we managed to get it all working with our TriCaster. But it was interesting because she showed up 45 minutes late, around 30 to 45 minutes late, and we just shot the blank stage and had some people walking in and saying a few things in front of the camera, and it seemed to build the audience really well. I think we had before the show even started, I think we had 50,000 concurrents, and then during it was 80 to 100,000, back and forth. But again, it turned out to be a really successful event just because it was so. I think one of the allure the biggest allure of live streaming is that it's live and it's kind of uncensored in a way. Like, you know, if it's a blank stage, you're kind of seeing what's going on and you're seeing the mistakes that people can make. I think it's one of the more interesting parts of live streaming as opposed to just watching video on demand is that you're getting that raw, uncensored version. So that was a really successful event for us.
That's good.
I think probably, I mean, we've done a ton of crazy events, like anything from, you know, a 7-camera HD shoot on like Richard Branson's island to, you know, things like all over the place. But, you know, one of the things that kind of always remains true is that people always expect the same production value that they get from like a 40-person TV crew, but they hire like 2 people to come out, and then it's like, you know, so you have to make that work because you can't tell them, well, we can't do this. And so really the key to all of that, and the reason that we're able to make events like that shoot on the island work, is you have to keep everything as streamlined as possible. And it's like if you overcomplicate things and you bring like this kind of setup that isn't really fully baked and it's based off of more of a television, like an antiquated model like that, you're going to run into a problem where the show is going to be super minimal and it's going to cost a ton of money and the client's going to be like kind of pissed at the end of it. And a really good example of how we were able to make that work is we did an MTV shoot last Thursday for Twilight Breaking Dawn. It was on MTV First. And typically on those shoots, like we'll show up at 8 and then the actual shoot will air around 2 or 3 p.m. This one, they were doing a Hanpin ceremony at the Chinese. And so the actual portion that we were shooting was 10 a.m. And so we set up a 3-camera shoot with, you know, a jib, 2 camera operators, audio, you know, PA sound, you know, like basically we brought in the whole studio and set it up inside the Chinese 6. And we had that done in an hour and a half. And so, you know, when it aired, it ended up being the highest viewed MTV News live stream in history. And had we done that with like a kind of a model where we rolled in a truck and all this stuff, like it probably wouldn't have happened because it would have been like 20 dudes like standing around, like not really doing anything and kind of like wasting a lot of time, and it would have been 3 o'clock and nothing would have gotten done. But the way that we did it, we kind of scaled it down to like exactly what we needed, had a little bit of redundancy, enough, you know, enough to make sure that everything went off perfectly. And we got there like zip, zip, zip. It was done, like on the air. Everybody was super calm. It's like we were in and out and as if nothing ever happened. And so this is kind of a short clip from that.
Okay, oops. Got to get the keyboard on.
That was the very first one? That was the first Twilight Set interview that we did with you guys.
Yeah, that was someone else, though.
It was Larry.
That was very different.
Okay. I don't know how to take that.
No, I love you guys.
I think it was a compliment.
We've had good development. We've known each other for a long time. Our relationships have really progressed.
It's true. And by the end of this first, I don't know, we're going to either never speak to each other again, or it's just going to go to the next level. Okay, so
just a little kind of taste of what that looked like.
Yeah, I mean that certainly didn't look like got there an hour before the shoot started.
Yeah, I mean it's, you know, it was the fastest we've ever set one of those up. So.
So I think, you know, I think we talked about, I mean, people talked about using mobile live packs a little bit to do streams, and sometimes for a high-end client we've used fiber or satellites, but I think most of the time people are trying to do it off an internet connection. So I'm just kind of wondering, maybe a group here weigh in on, you know, what connection do you need? That's like one of the key things that you probably think of first. I mean, I think we chatted a little before, and there were 2. It's like, what's your budget for the event, and then you pick which tool you pull out of your pocket to make it work, but then what's the bandwidth at the event? So what would you guys want to have bandwidth at an event if you're streaming it, you know, you're not using fiber or mobile live pack? You want to weigh in with?
I would say for starters, the biggest, you know, thing is the uplink speed, and that's something that not a lot of people think about. You know, when you get like a cable internet modem, you know, a lot of times, even if it's business class modem, you'll get 50 megabits down, but it'll only give you like 1 megabit up. And people just don't realize that when they decide to do a live stream, like, oh, we have plenty of bandwidth, and you're like, well, let me come out and test it. They're like, no, really, we got it. And then you show up and it's like, you know, 700 kilobits up. So first things first, you have to find out what the internet connection is, if it's, you know, if it's a T1 line, if it's filtered, if it's secure network that they're using for other things, if it's dedicated. So if you're going to be the only one using it for the event, or if they're deciding for this event that they have, maybe they do have, you know, 20 megabits or 5 megabits up and 20 down, but they're still going to be using it for client, like tablet activations or whatever, then you're like, well, we can't use it either because you never know what kind of bandwidth you're going to get for your stream. So I would say for starters, a dedicated, 4 megabits up at least, and then 20 megabits down would be a good starting point for a good solid stream.
I think, it also depends on, the kind of shoot. I mean, if you're doing a shoot where the client wants, multiple bit rates and, they want to encode one HD stream and several SD streams, then, that's obviously going to push your bandwidth needs up a lot. But I mean, in reality, I mean, we do, tons of streams a year, and, for most of them, it's like, single bit rate. Generally, it's going to be like pretty standard, like, your 640 by 360, something like that, for most players. So, I mean, for there, like, you kind of, for the most part, you kind of want to ask for a little bit more than you need, but you don't want to ask for enough to, like, freak out the client. I mean, if you go and you ask them for 10 megs up, then it's like, it could get canceled, you know what I mean? Because they're going to be like, we can't do that. But if you ask them for maybe 2, then that's very doable. You'll probably end up with, like, 1.5, and on 1.5, you can do a single bit rate stream without a problem,
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that. One thing that I think a lot of people are starting to utilize more is like the Wowza in the clouds. I know like Ustream, Livestream, they have that built in where you send them one stream, they make everything off of that, and then you can get away with less. But I know like for us, we don't use that. So we basically normally use Cisco encoders. We send all of our bit rates out. So a normal, like a high-end event, I'll have 6 HLS streams and maybe 4 RTMP each. So the total per just the primaries is probably about 10 megs. Throw in a backup, that's 20 megs. And so that's what I would ask for. But then on the other end, like I do an event out of Marlo Thomas's apartment, and she refuses to get better internet. She refuses to let me bring in a live view pack, because it's just different and it's scary. So, I make do. I send a 300K stream. It doesn't look great, but, it's there. People can watch it. They're happy at the end of the day.
I think we were talking a little more, maybe expand on that it's like, what's your pain point? Like, there's some shows that we do where the sponsor is it's a major brand name thing, and it can't go down for a second. It's like a broadcast event. But then there's other shows which may not have all that behind it, where if you're up for 8 hours on a stream and maybe it reboots or lost a little, it's not going to be the end of things. So is there, do you weigh the budget and the pain factor in doing?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the first thing. It's what is basically like, is this sponsored? Are we going to lose ad dollars if this stream goes down? And how much money are you willing to spend for it? Because obviously, fiber is going to be more reliable than a live view pack, but it's a lot more expensive. And so it's kind of always just explaining these trade-offs and saying basically if there's an internet connection, we can do something. Something can happen, but it may not look pretty, and you just have to be willing to make those sacrifices.
Mm-hmm. We have 2 big issues when it comes to bandwidth, and one is that people would rather believe what someone told them the bandwidth is rather than just seeing what the bandwidth actually is at the moment they want to stream. So they'll say, no, the guy promised me that I have 5 megabits up. And I'm like, I don't care what the guy said. What does your speed test say? And they do a speed test and they say, oh, that must be wrong. Well, no, I'm sorry. It's, the speed test is right and the guy is wrong. Or, your provider promised you the maximum that's possible, but that's not what you're actually getting. So we have that as a big issue. The other big issue is people don't understand the majority of encoders are using variable bitrate. And variable bitrate can have major swings, especially if you use an encoder where if you do specific settings on it, the swings can be almost uncapped. And so sometimes we've had people that say, well, I'm only doing an 800K stream and I have a 5 megabit up connection and I know it's 5 megabits up. And they don't realize that you could still, if you're on a microwave 5 megabit connection, you have any dip in your bandwidth, and then you have any swing on your encoder, you could still easily exceed your bandwidth. And so it's really important to understand basically what is your actual bandwidth, make sure it's not fluctuating, and do multiple speed tests to see, basically is your bandwidth staying consistent, know if there's other people on it, and then also to understand the realities of what encoder you're using and how much does it swing, and are there settings in it to control the swing of your variable bit rate.
Maybe this is obvious. It's obvious to all of us, and maybe it is to everyone in the room. But I would say speedtest.net is your friend. I mean, I think that's if you want to get your up and down speed and try different stuff. Speedtest.net. And I don't know if anyone uses other things.
Yeah, I think you also though need to.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think you also need to do some ping tests because you can have lots of bandwidth, but if your latency is way up there, you're going to lose a ton of packets, and it's not going to look pretty on the other end.
Right. Let me talk a little. So we've talked about the transmission side of it, and the other part is the production side. So I think some video production events are one camera, some are a prosumer or something or other, some are 3 cameras and a switcher. So describe a little bit about the range of are you using a hardwired switcher, a TriCaster, a Wirecast, or a single camera? Give me a little bit about, maybe Victor start, of the range of options you think about.
We typically end up using TriCaster for the majority of shoots. There's times when you do, particularly events that are with a network or something like that, sometimes they'll want to steer you toward more of like a Panasonic or something like that. But at the end of the day, it's kind of the same thing. We use TriCaster because it offers kind of the most functionality in a small space. But to me, there's a lot of I've worked with people that always try to push something like a Wirecast or something like that, and that works really good for single camera type of setup and things like that. But you run into so many problems whenever you try to make a multi-camera show or a TriCaster type of show out of something like Wirecast or some other type of software like that. I mean, for the most part, when you're doing something where you want to have all those different types of feeds coming in, whether it's PCs and things like that, you have to go with something that gives you kind of a hardware surface to plug everything into, or else you're going to see the kind of effects of that in the finished product. So.
Anyone else?
I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think he said everything.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Okay. I think we touched on this a little bit more. So I think also people think about the live event, and they sometimes only think about the live event when it's on, and the archives are the afterthought. And sometimes, I mean, a live event, you never know what's going to happen. And so, some events work great as live, and they're lousy as the archive. But there's many events that work good live, and maybe you get even more audience watching the archive. So, kind of where does the archiving workflow fit into the events that you guys do? Is that how do you think about the archives? Do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of a main thing. You have to think about that because. The moment the stream goes down, that's what you have when it's over. As I said before, we loop everything on a KeyPro, so we always try to record to a KeyPro in camera, and then if it's in the studio, we have pipelines, and so we'll record live to our SAN as it's happening, and it's actually really cool. Editors can edit it while it's actually happening live, so we can start to turn around clips as an event is actually happening, which is just really helpful so that the moment it's done, there's the little highlight clips, and then you still have the loop, so there's just that much more for people to view. But I think it's really important that when you think of the live stream, you also think of how you're going to capture it, because no matter what in your if it's an SDI workflow, if it's a FireWire workflow, somewhere you have to be recording that, and where you're taking your live stream from is going to be one of those paths. So I think it's just really important that the same people who are doing the live stream are also talking to whoever's setting up the production if it's a different different person, and making sure that everyone's just on the same page with that.
Anyone else want to weigh in on the archiving part?
I think one of the best things about archiving is a lot of the abilities that you have to archive things live. And Ustream in particular has a great platform for that we use during the Disrupt in San Francisco, where as you're going along, instead of waiting till the end of the event, which we'll typically loop events as well afterwards, just to kind of get the people that were late to the event to see it live or kind of live. But what you can do is you can actually clip off that event as you're going along. So instead of waiting till the end and then having to sit there and post and edit everything and then upload it, which then you're kind of missing out a little bit on that, how newsworthy it is. You can kind of clip it off live, and then you still have the ability to kind of send it wherever you need to go because those clips are already being archived. So, I mean, when the event's done, you're basically done with it, close the book, you can move on to the next thing, it's already where it needs to be.
Yeah, that's one thing that, so I actually worked with John on, we were doing a TechCrunch's conference in New York and in San Francisco, and one thing that happens at this conference is that someone might say something newsworthy and they want to get the clip up right away. Or we worked on the Le Web conference, which was in France, and they had the CEO from PayPal on stage, and it was right around the time that PayPal had cut off WikiLeaks. And he made some comment about WikiLeaks that everyone thought was a big deal. And so, you know, if something just happened on the live stream, you can't get that archive up fast enough. And one thing that's you can take advantage of is that if you're already encoding to H.264 AAC at a certain bit rate that's sort of a web-friendly playback format, if you can basically figure out a way to take these same clips that you just encoded for live and get them immediately turned into VOD. And in some cases, for this conference, for example, there was 100 one-minute presentations. And so you don't have time to clip heads and tails. You don't have time to re-encode these, reconvert these, because you know, you would need a staff of several people just to physically manage that many clips. So we were trying to do it in a real-time workflow so that basically, as it was live, we were just hitting start and stop, and then all those clips could get up within minutes rather than getting up within hours. And when it's newsworthy content, that's really important. So.
Yeah, I mean, archiving, you know, at these events that we do, we have many different panels, and we're going to write, TechCrunch is going to write an article about almost every single panel, and the writers, you know, it's pretty fast for them. They maybe even know a little bit about what's going to be said ahead of time, and they'll, you know, by the time the event is over, they're ready to go on their text posts, because that's a bit easier, not always, but and you know, they want the video in there like 2 seconds after the panel is over. And you know, sometimes there's a mindset of, oh, well, we could get it ready in like 2 or 3 days later, but that's like way too late. So we try as you know, come up with ways where doing it in real time, or you know, to have the archives ready on the spot, which is the only other, and we'll open it up to questions in a couple minutes here, but I did also want to throw out that I think a lot of us have done experience with those live view or similar technology, where one is a backpack that you can go on, and I think there's a new one that's going to be like the size of a small box, I guess, it fits on the camera, and just share using those things, because then you don't even need the wired internet connection. Then you just need a little bit of cell phone bandwidth, and you know, I think it's just fascinating to some of us what you can do without even a connection. So I think you guys have used that.
Yeah, I mean, the live view packs are great, and for the longest time, they were kind of the only person in that space. And there's been a lot of shows where, you know, talking about connectivity, we've, you know, been assured of, you know, you have 1.5 up, 2 up, and then you show up and you end up doing the show on the live view, as you know, using that as your encoder and your uplink. So, I mean, that's definitely something that works really good. The latency, you know, you do see a little bit of delay there. But, you know, like if you went to NAB a couple of years ago, that was like the only thing around. If you went to NAB this past year, there was like, you know, probably 20 people doing the same thing. And a lot of the packs are really small too. Like there's, I mean, like Mushroom Networks, there's a bunch of different places. And they have packs now where it's kind of the all-in-one thing, where it's a backpack setup where you can plug a camera into it. And then there's other ones that just work strictly as an uplink. So it's like the box is maybe like the size of this pad of paper. And you just basically, you know, plug a Cat5 in there. It works the same way. You have, you know, 6 cell phone cards, and it, you know, still does all the bonding and everything like that. But it just, instead of going FireWire and having to have a converter and all that, you can just go straight in Cat5. So. Yeah,
they just I think LiveView just is starting work on the LiveView LU40i pack, I believe it's called. It's like this, it's about the size of, you know, like this big, and it's the same thing. It's just smaller. But from what I've heard, I don't know if it's HD compatible, but yeah, the technology is amazing that they're able to just use those cell phone links to broadcast. I still think it's amazing.
Mm-hmm. We've used them for a lot of pretty awesome events that, you know, definitely wouldn't have happened without them. And the only catch for them is that sometimes you have situations where the cell phone networks are completely clogged. Our office is right near where the San Francisco Giants won the World Series. And I'll tell you, you couldn't send a text message anywhere in that neighborhood when the game was going on. And so the only problem is that sometimes you have these big events where there's a lot of people there, where someone's like, oh, take a live pack down there and go shoot it. It'd be awesome. Yeah, well, you're not going to get any signal in those situations. So That's the only catch that we've experienced with something like that, is that relying on the cell phone networks can certainly be tough when the cell phone networks themselves are just so clogged that you can't use them.
I think people almost, because they see these technologies, they almost think, oh, of course you can live stream from anywhere. And I mean, we like at CES, I couldn't even make a phone call because the phone networks weren't working. My phone didn't work. The text barely did. But because I guess some of these mobile live packs have multiple modems in it, and they're trying to connect on all the different networks, it was able to mostly get out of stream. I mean, I think you got to understand that it's going to stop, and there's probably nothing you can do about it. I mean, if the bandwidth goes, it rides up and down constantly, and sometimes it's just going to freeze or buffer if you're in a difficult situation, and there's probably nothing you're going to be able to do to solve that sometimes. But I think we got about 10 minutes left, and they said that we'd try to do some Q&A. I mean, I have some other questions, but let's try some Q&A. And if you want to direct it at a person, do that, or else I will. So go ahead. Oh, and actually, we should have a microphone. Let's have you talking to the mic so everyone hears. Oops. We almost lost Eric over there. Okay, right in the front.
Hi. I work with NASA. I know Brian. And I do everything you guys do, okay? I'm a broadcast engineer, and I got to go out and I got to set it up and I got to do it, okay? And I have a question. So I'm going to try to save a little money, okay? So instead of renting a satellite truck or doing dry fiber, which I've done many times, okay? I want to use the general internet, which means I'm going to do what you guys are trying to do, okay? So what I need to know is, do any of you guys know how difficult it is to call an ISP, the local ISP at the venue, and go, look, I need a VPC and I need 10 megabits or I need 50 megabits. What's the time frame for that? Do you guys have any kind of experience with that? So if I got some money and it's going to be hopefully less than satellite or fiber, I need to talk to the ISP, I need a VPC, and I need it at this venue. Can you help me? So you guys know anything about that?
We've looked into that before, and that's why we've ended up normally going fiber, because it can often be 60 days, and if you want it faster, there's a big rush fee, and it can end up being longer. And that's in New York, so
you said 60 days?
I know the 1 or 2 times where we've priced it out, it's been 60 days.
60 days.
Yeah. And that's New York City, so it may be different down there.
Yeah. I mean, typically 60 days of provisioning times is pretty standard when you go through telco. I mean, depending on the area too, there's always the option of going kind of point to point. I mean, there's places like TowerStream and Covad that can do point-to-point connections like that, and those are usually pretty scalable. So, I mean, if you're in a place where they can hit it from one of their towers or something like that, that's an option. And those, I think TowerStream is, I want to say, they can have a connection up within 48 hours. So, at the Chinese Theater, for example, we set a connection up there for a stream that we had to have on. We were doing the show on Friday, and we called them on Monday, and by Wednesday it was ready to go. So.
Another question then. I'm in a venue like here, okay, and they got nominal internet, okay, 10 down, 1 out, or something like that. I need a bump up for my upload to 10 megabits or something like that, so I get a pretty good looking picture for HD, 720p. Do you guys know how difficult that is to do, just to get a bump up?
I'm not sure.
It all depends on
the venue,
the provider. Yeah, for the venue.
Also, I think that it always depends on if they have that capability with the line they've already dropped. They may say that it's already beyond, it's already at its limit. So sometimes you're unlucky on that.
I mean, I think some venues maybe it's easier than others for sure. I will say in China we had that problem that we were not getting enough and we needed more, and there was no way in 24 hours to get the bump up. So we wound up not letting the audience have much bandwidth and stole it for a stream. I think someone else had a question. Well, go ahead. Okay.
What percentage of business class productions, I know Hollywood's one thing, you get satellite trucks, but a business class, if they came to you and said, we want to broadcast this live from this venue, how many times would you use what's existing and just make it work versus try to bring some other bandwidth source in? Anybody can answer.
I was going to say, I think it depends a lot on their budget, and that's always the hardest thing, is that we've done productions for huge corporations with tons of money, but the problem is that for the specific production they were doing, it was coming out of someone's marketing budget, and so it's only, they say we can only spend $10,000 or $20,000, and they don't have enough. So I think it's really dependent on the budget, I would say.
I think it's really important that, and so this is something I struggle with still, is that making the live stream portion of the show, building that into the event platform, like when they're in the room talking about how they're going to do this event and everything, making the live stream part of that discussion as opposed to an afterthought, and making it more budget oriented so that you get the budget that you need to get the production you want, and making it more of an interactive experience and more of a rich experience than just kind of like a third party watching whatever show is going on. And I think that for business class productions, I think that's really important, to let everybody know at the table that's making those decisions, this is what we should do for live streaming if this is what you want to do. Otherwise, we can do it, there's no problem, but you may not get what you want out of it.
So what percentage? Is it 10% used as existing, or is it 50%?
As used internet line? I mean, it varies. I'd say maybe, like 30% of the time I can use it, and I always have to specify that like nobody else can use the line, so I'll usually call the house technician and make sure that he's able to like lock it down for me or something. But I typically, I don't, it's hard to trust that, especially if you're doing a big production and you're the point guy. It's tough to be like, oh yeah, the IT guy said it was fine.
I'd say 40 to 50% of the time.
And then percentage?
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably 50 or so.
Okay. I think we got maybe one or two. Just I think there were some other hands. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm just wondering if any of you have had successful experience with ad insertion or replacement through a live stream, and if so, what you did to make that successful.
Maybe Alden wants to.
So we on our platform, we have our own ad server, which we've certainly swapped pre-rolls and mid-rolls and things like that, and in the middle of the live stream. I'm not sure specifically. We don't really do it on the encoder level. We're not, and we have a lot of TV networks that are very interested for us to do that. We don't offer that at the time, so most of the ad serving that we do is with our own ad server, where people give us an ad tag and we run it like that.
I think the ad piece, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think the ad part of it does clearly weigh into all our productions, of whether it's a pre-roll or how we're doing it. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, we use Freewheel now, and so for certain of our shows, there's that sponsored by Sprint. The Sprint, ad has to happen, and so it's kind of, we make the player. We use our own custom Brightcove player. Just in the XML that we upload, have to make sure that all the metadata does actually, match the right asset. So it's just kind of some more internal communication that needs to happen on our end.
But it does wind up on the streaming producer to make the ad side of it happen, and I bet
exactly.
One more quick one, and then I think that's it. Or maybe there's not. Anyone? No? Go ahead. Last. Is everyone on the end over there?
Hey, a couple of you guys mentioned you guys use the TriCaster. Do you guys have any experience putting captions through the TriCaster or no?
Captions like subtitles or something, or name graphics? What?
Like either closed captions or open captions or any kind.
I haven't.
We're not doing that, or
I haven't really done that yet.
No, but there's someone from TriCaster here that I'm sure you could talk to about it. So.
Yeah, I haven't done that. Okay, well, I think we're out of time, but I want to thank everyone for coming and hope you learned something. And have a good day. Thank you to my panelists.